Welcome to today's update. Welcome to today's video on the Eastern Pacific, and right now we've had a relatively record state of inactivity across the Eastern Pacific. I mean, not counting Pally, which was the Central Pacific hurricane in early January this year. I mean, we have not had a single named tropical. You exclude Pally, we have not had a single named tropical cyclone in the Eastern Pacific. We only had one short-lived tropical depression. In addition to that, in the actual NHC warning zone, there's not been a single named tropical cyclone since Pally was in the Central Pacific. We've not had a single named tropical cyclone in the NHC area of responsibility for that. This is the latest date in the reliable record, which on my database begins at 1976. Though many sources would point to reliable records beginning in 1971 with the Dvorak era. However, I'd like to point out that Dvorak estimates until even much later beyond 76. So around at least 76, possibly even arguably much later. Arguably as late as 1988 were not that good. So, I mean, but regardless, we have had the latest start to Eastern Pacific hurricane season in the NHC area of responsibility since 1969, whether you want to count it as reliable records or not. On my database, 1969 it's not listed at all, which had Tropical Storm Ava developed on July 3rd, 1969. However, this could be changing somewhat soon. We have one area where NHC is currently monitoring. I'm not sure if we'll do much, but I'll get to that later. First and foremost, let's point out that the MGL, according to the European model, is coming back, while very weak, is coming back into the Pacific pretty soon. It's like to spark a convectively coupled carbon wave as shown by the GFS model, which actually shows a pretty robust MGL pulse. It actually shows no, it doesn't, but it shows some sort of MGL pulse also hitting the same general area on the European continent, leaving the maritime continent, and then circling its way around the world. You can see the BLM is probably the most bullish as usual. We know it's been pretty accurate, and calls for MGL to just linger around the Pacific for most of July, and we'll see what happens. I mean, these gold models in general, especially the GFS, has a tendency to propagate the MGO too fast. And the European, for starters, is probably the best. I don't like almost anything after from the MGO. Let's take a look, step back a little bit, and see what the CFS rainfall forecasts are like. You can see that they gradually show, possibly due to this upcoming MGO pulse, they gradually show the Eastern Pacific becoming a little bit more favorable place for tropical cyclone development. You can see development kind of lifting northward, and this pattern shown by the CFS would favor the idea of multiple tropical cyclones forming, like several tropical cyclones forming south of Socorro Island throughout the month of July. I mean, shear is projected to relax over the main latitude between 10 and 20 degrees along just outside the deep tropics, west of the Mexican coast. GFS also has shear relaxing, and I believe the European does too, though I don't have the European forecast in this video. And in general, they show a more this is a CFS run from several days ago, but in general, they show a more favorable. They show a much more favorable environment with a very, very low wind shear across the months of September and October. We'll see if we'll be able to take advantage of it or not. Now take a look at the GFS, but that's kind of for like a later video. I mean, we still have a developing La Nina before I take a look at the GFS, so I mean. Anyway, let's take a look at the GFS and European ones. Let's very quickly, for just a moment here, if my computer actually wants to load. Alright. So this is the system that I was talking about earlier. This is this system right here. ANSI is currently giving this system a 20% chance of development in the next 5 days. Probably won't develop. This system could become a decently organized index in years 140W and eventually fizzles out into the dry air and high shear zone of the Central Pacific. I mean, they do, as the gold models do, keep the system as a closed low for the next several days. And let's take a look at the let's take a look at the GFS runs. You can see there, they start to develop around day 5, starts to slowly develop a very large tropical cyclone in this region. Though they eventually develop this into a fairly broad kind of from a Western Pacific monsoonal origin. And now, several days ago, the GFS was not showing this at all. This is the European, which I'll show later, which was showing a powerful hurricane around this time. Now, it's come into a little bit more agreement with the GFS also being less bullish, but now, excuse me, with the European model being less bullish, but the GFS is now at least showing some system. I believe this is the third line in a row now that's actually showed a legitimately organized tropical storm. That kind of has it visually now past crushing Coral Island to its south. It's going to be a very large system, so I can see some potential. We kind of seen these sort of systems develop at the beginning of MJO pulses. I mean, for instance, I'm going to take as an example Hurricane Cosmo in 2013 is kind of a good example for this. That these kind of systems don't become particularly strong, but they are very broad and they're very monsoonal-like, and they're very vigorous in terms of deep convection. You can see the European is showing pretty much the same thing. You can see kind of a disorganized but robust tropical cycle. Now, I would like to point out, though, that possibilities of a strong storm aren't there, because this was the European run a few runs back, actually making the system a hurricane near Coral Island. I'd also like to point out, from looking at the ensembles, which I'm allowed to post, that so far, in general, these tracks are shifted from a kind of a system that kind of brushes the Mexican coast, maybe even threatens to Baja California, which was what they were hinting at like 3 to 4 days ago, to more of a Coral Island threat, or a system just brushing Coral Island, that the past few runs of the European GFS have been showing. To now, more might even be if the ensemble, the leftward shifts continue, might become more of a southerly threat, like not land threat at all, and passing low to the south of any land masses, and becoming kind of more of like a southern clipper. This is what's supported by several European ensemble members, or EPS ensemble members, which is the Europeans ensemble. Kind of like the ensembles are sort of like 51 separate lower resolution model runs that have each one with slightly different conditions in it, or slightly different biases, to kind of test the main European run, to see if the main European run is in the right ballpark or not. And I mean, sometimes these EPS ensemble members can kind of tell you where the system's going. Right now, these tracks, especially on the 12Z run, which have shifted a bit to the west, so it's something we're going to have to keep in mind. So it's something to keep in mind for future model runs. In general, my general thoughts on this system is that I do generally think with the MJO pulse, it's likely that we do get a tropical system within the next first few days of July. I mean, now the question is, there's some uncertainties with the track. It doesn't appear aside from maybe Coral Island, this definitely won't threaten the mainland Mexican coast. It will likely pass as a minimal. It will likely to be anywhere from a minimal tropical storm to a minimal hurricane. Though the system will likely to be very large and likely struggle with its broad size, and sort of like a Western Pacific monsoon type time, take several days to organize, but it should eventually organize, and this should by around July 2nd or 3rd become the first tropical storm in the season, before eventually dissipating to colder waters. What will happen after this is kind of too soon to say, but I will say the conditions should be pretty favorable for at least the first half of July. possibly in the second half. Kind of depends what's going to happen with the MGO. We don't have a very good handle on the MGO beyond two weeks. So it's kind of hard to say, but it's likely we get 2, maybe 3 tropical cyclones during the beginning part of July. Anyhow, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye.